Imagine walking home late at night. You've worked your whole life to get here. You've just been sworn in to lead a city, to bring change, to carry the weight of an entire community's trust on your shoulders. And then, out of nowhere, a police cruiser pulls up. A veteran cop steps out, looks you up and down, and decides you don't belong. He questions you, mocks you, and in one moment that still shocks everyone who hears it, he spits in your face. The humiliation is instant. The silence heavy. But here's what that officer didn't know. That man he just spat on was not just another black man walking home. He was the new chief of police. His boss. The man about to take control of the very department that had just tried to break him. And from that single moment of disrespect, a firestorm begins. Secrets come out. Loyalties break. And the line between justice and betrayal turns deadly. It all started on a stormy night in downtown Franklin City. The streets were wet, empty, except for the glow of neon signs flickering against puddles. Officer Rick Dalton, a veteran white cop with nearly 25 years on the force, was patrolling with his rookie partner, Jamie Torres. And by every account, Rick had a reputation. He was brash, aggressive, known to keep people in line with intimidation. Some admired him, others feared him. That night, he spotted a man crossing the street in a sharp, expensive suit. The man's walk was calm, steady, confident. Rick's suspicion flared instantly. He pulled the cruiser to the curb, stepped out, and confronted the stranger. "Where you headed this late, huh? Dressed like that?" Rick barked. The man replied evenly, "I'm going home." But to Rick, it wasn't good enough. He circled him like a predator, sneering. And then, in an act so unprofessional it would sound like fiction if it wasn't on record, Rick spit directly in the man's face. Witnesses say the man didn't flinch, didn't shout. He just wiped his face and said quietly, "You'll regret that one day." He turned and walked away. What Rick didn't realize in that moment was that this man was Marcus Hale, the newly appointed police chief of Franklin City. He had been sworn in only hours earlier, though the news hadn't yet spread to the rank-and-file officers. And this single act would ignite a chain reaction that shook the entire department. The very next morning, the precinct gathered for the introduction of their new chief. The mayor stood at the podium, announcing with pride, "Ladies and gentlemen, meet your new police chief, Marcus Hale." The applause was loud, but Rick froze. His blood ran cold. Because standing at that podium, smiling confidently, was the same man he had spit on just hours before. The room clapped. Rick sat in silence, jaw tight, unable to process what he was seeing. And Marcus? He didn't call Rick out. He didn't even mention the incident. But their eyes locked. For a second too long. And in that silence, Rick knew he had made the biggest mistake of his career. From that day on, everything started to unravel. Marcus wasn't just a new chief. He was a reformer. He demanded accountability, fairness, transparency. And the department, used to decades of old-school policing, resisted. But the strangest part? The official logs from the night of the spitting incident were inconsistent. According to Rick's patrol report, nothing unusual happened. The log read, "Routine patrol. No incidents." But Jamie, his rookie partner, remembered everything. And when internal investigators asked, his account didn't match Rick's. Even more bizarre, two civilian witnesses came forward. Their stories aligned perfectly with Jamie's. They described the confrontation, the aggression, the spit. Yet Rick doubled down. "Never happened," he told investigators. The rookies confused. Civilians are lying. But the inconsistencies piled higher. Why did Rick's body camera mysteriously malfunction that night? Why did his cruiser's dashcam show him stopping but cut off right before the confrontation? Why did the audio files suddenly corrupt? It was almost too coincidental. And the city began to whisper, was someone inside the department protecting him? Marcus didn't confront Rick publicly. He played the long game. He tightened rules. He cracked down on misconduct. And quietly, he watched Rick. Rick, meanwhile, grew paranoid. He started drinking more, complaining to other officers that the new chief was soft, that the city was going to hell. He didn't know who to trust anymore. Some of his fellow cops still admired him. Others turned away, aligning with Marcus. Even Jamie, the rookie, began to see Marcus as a mentor. Rick felt surrounded. And when one of his longtime drinking buddies whispered, "We should push him out before he pushes us out," Rick listened. That's when the real danger began. Because here's the twist nobody saw coming. The incident, the spit, the disrespect, wasn't just a one-time lapse. It exposed a deeper rot. As Marcus dug deeper into misconduct files, he uncovered a hidden pattern. Rick's name popped up again and again. Complaints of excessive force, intimidation, racially charged language, all brushed aside, all buried by the old guard. And worse? Some of those old complaints connected Rick to a string of unsolved cases. Assaults, harassment, even a suspicious in-custody death. The spitting incident had opened the door, and Marcus was ready to walk through it. But Rick wasn't going down quietly. One night, a standoff broke out in a housing project. A local gang barricaded themselves inside with weapons. Dozens of lives at stake. Marcus wanted negotiation, calm, strategy. Rick wanted force. Kick the door down, end it quick. Against orders, Rick tried to push forward. Guns almost went off. Bloodshed was seconds away. But Marcus de-escalated. The gang surrendered. Lives were saved. To the public, Marcus was a hero. Inside the department, Rick was humiliated. And in his humiliation, he grew reckless. By now, the walls were closing in. Investigators reopened Rick's old complaints. Jamie distanced himself. Marcus's reforms gained momentum. But then, something shocking happened. One night, while Jamie and Rick were on patrol, a call came in. Suspicious activity. Backup requested. They arrived, and walked straight into an ambush. Gunfire erupted. Jamie was pinned down, bleeding. Rick had a chance to escape. For the first time, his instincts didn't tell him to run or dominate. They told him to protect. Shots cracked through the air. Rick dove, pulling Jamie to cover. Marcus arrived moments later, leading backup units. And there, under flashing red and blue lights, he saw something he didn't expect. Rick, bleeding, trembling, shielding Jamie with his body. For the first time, Marcus wondered, was this broken, arrogant officer capable of change? Rick was rushed to the hospital. The department braced for fallout. But here's the haunting part. When investigators reviewed the ambush scene later, they found evidence suggesting the attack wasn't random. Shell casings, coordinates, a phone message. Someone had tipped the gang off. And the most chilling theory? It wasn't meant for Jamie. It wasn't meant for Rick. It was meant for Marcus. Rick lay in a hospital bed, pale and bleeding, tubes running from his arms. The same man he had spit on weeks earlier, Chief Marcus Hale, stood silently at his side. What had started as an act of humiliation was now a strange, twisted bond. Because Rick had done something unexpected. He had shielded his partner. He had saved a life. But here's where it gets darker. When investigators combed the ambush site, they found evidence suggesting the attack wasn't random at all. Spent casings, markings, a burner phone tucked in an alley. The gang wasn't waiting for Rick. They weren't waiting for Jamie. They were waiting for Marcus. And someone had told them exactly where he would be. The department launched an internal probe. Someone inside had leaked Marcus's movements. At first, suspicion fell on Rick. After all, He had every reason to hate the new chief. He had the history. He had the motive. But when Jamie testified, things got complicated. According to Jamie, during the ambush, Rick didn't just act bravely. He shouted Marcus's name, warning him before shots rang out. He seemed genuinely panicked. Not like a man who had orchestrated the attack, but like a man caught in the middle of it. That left only one terrifying conclusion. If Rick wasn't the mole, then someone else inside the department was. The deeper Marcus dug, the stranger it got. Phone records were missing. Patrol logs didn't add up. Radios mysteriously malfunctioned in key units the night of the ambush. But here's the kicker. Every single inconsistency pointed back to one thing. There wasn't just one bad cop. There was a network. And for years, they had buried misconduct, covered up violence, protected their own. The spitting incident had just cracked the surface. Now, the whole rotten structure was spilling out. Late one night, Marcus visited Rick in the hospital. Rick, pale but awake, finally broke. Rick, weak, trembling. I didn't set you up. I swear it. But you need to know something. He told Marcus about late-night bar meetings, about whispered conversations in the locker room, about veteran officers, some still in uniform, who believed Marcus was a threat to their way of life. Rick, they don't want you here. They'll do anything to push you out. Anything. Marcus asked the question that chilled him to his core. Marcus, how high does it go? Rick looked away. Rick, higher than you think. Because here's the shocking part. Rick wasn't exaggerating. Documents surfaced tying several senior officers to off-the-books operations. Side deals with local gangs. Missing evidence. Even rumors of payoffs connected to city officials. The ambush wasn't just a random attack. It was a message. A warning to Marcus. Back off, or next time, you won't be so lucky. Jamie, the rookie, suddenly found himself trapped. On one side, he admired Marcus, a leader trying to clean the rot. On the other, he still had loyalty to Rick, the man who had saved his life. And then came the threats. An anonymous note slid under his apartment door. Stay quiet, or you'll be next. His phone buzzed with blocked calls. Heavy breathing. Silence on the line. Jamie realized he wasn't just a bystander anymore. He was a target. As weeks passed, paranoia spread. Marcus didn't know who he could trust inside his own department. Rick, desperate to prove his innocence, started naming names. Officers he claimed were part of the old guard conspiracy. But investigators found half-truths, not enough evidence. The public, watching from the outside, saw only chaos. News anchors shouted about corruption. Protesters gathered outside the precinct. And the mayor? He went silent. It was as if the entire city was holding its breath, waiting to see who would fall first, Marcus or the men trying to bring him down. Then, just when things seemed like they couldn't escalate further, they did. During a late-night press conference, Marcus was leaving City Hall when a black SUV roared past, gunmen leaning out the window. Bullets shattered glass. Chaos erupted. Officers returned fire. Civilians screamed. Marcus dove behind a column, narrowly escaping. And here's the chilling detail. Ballistic reports later matched the shell casings to weapons signed out of the precinct armory, meaning someone inside had supplied the hit men. Rick, still limping from his hospital recovery, begged Marcus for a private meeting. Rick, you think I'm your enemy, but I'm not. I can help you. I know how these guys think. I know their habits. Their spots. Marcus stared at him, skeptical. Marcus, why should I trust you? Rick lowered his eyes. Rick, because if you don't, they'll kill us both. The investigation turned into a race against time. Every day, new evidence emerged. A hidden stash house linked to corrupt cops. A burner phone with half-deleted messages. Anonymous tips that led to dead ends. It was like chasing shadows. And yet, through it all, Marcus and Rick found themselves unlikely allies. The man who once spat in his face, now whispering names, pointing out patterns, guiding him through the labyrinth of corruption. But the question hung in the air: was Rick helping? Or was he playing both sides? Finally, after weeks of mounting tension, investigators traced a payment, hundreds of thousands wired to an offshore account. The recipient? A name that shocked Marcus to his core. Not a gang leader, not a street-level thug, but a senior officer in his own command staff. Someone Marcus had trusted. Someone who sat in every meeting, nodded at every reform, shook his hand after every briefing. The betrayal was deeper than he had imagined. But before Marcus could confront them, another anonymous message hit his phone. 3 words. He's on to you. The clock was ticking. Someone inside his inner circle was selling him out. Rick was caught between redemption and suspicion. Jamie was living in fear. And Marcus, the man who had once been spit on, now the chief, was staring down enemies hidden in plain sight. The ambush wasn't the end. It was only the beginning.